Yeah. Maybe a show.
Yeah.
All right. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Andrew Kuiper, and I'm with Red Cloud Securities. Today, we have a webinar focused on First Vanadium, which has the Carlin Vanadium project in the United States. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Paul Crowley, who is the president and CEO, and Dave Matheson, who is their gold bug geological advisor with a great amount of knowledge in the camp that they're exploring. The format today is pretty simple. I'm going to do a brief introduction, and then I'm going to pass it over to both Paul and Dave to go through the opportunities that First Vanadium has to present, and some of the new insights and some of the new opportunities that are developing in what is turning out to be a multi-commodity project. To start, though, we'll go through the disclosures because they are important. From a Red Cloud perspective, I would like to highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation to purchase or sell securities or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. And we note that this call does not take into account the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigations and seek their own professional advice before investing. You can always look at Red Cloud Research on our platform, and you can find it on the internet. So I encourage you to always take a look at the research that Red Cloud has to offer. For First Vanadium, there may be some forward-looking statements made on this call, and I would simply direct you to the cautionary note on the company's presentation that you'll see shortly. I'm going to turn it over to Paul and Dave to run through First Vanadium, the Carlin Vanadium project, and what is looking to be a golden halo around that vanadium deposit. Paul?
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, and good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Very pleased to be here and with you at this time. It's a very important time for us because we've just actually started drilling on our gold target, which is it's a very timely opportunity to present to you. But I'm here with Dave Matheson, and we'll present about the Carlin Vanadium project and First Vanadium. And as Andrew has mentioned, we have been focused on our vanadium project in the Carlin Gold Trend, but what is quite intriguing is this gold opportunity that Dave Matheson has identified, and we're pivoting towards for the short-term opportunity for shareholders. So I will move forward through the forward-looking statements. Introducing the company, it's important to know that we're a very, very solid company with the principal factors that are looked for investors. That's having a good, solid company, team, share structure, and obviously good timing. And we have those things all working in unison and very, very strong components. And when it comes to the project, we have our flagship property, which is the Carlin Vanadium project, and it's right in the Carlin Gold Trend, which obviously has now turned our near-term focus on its exploration and in mining friendly Nevada. The project, as I mentioned before, has been focused on vanadium. The vanadium deposit is the largest, highest grade primary vanadium resource in North America, and it's got a PEA now, which I'll talk about. Our team, an exceptional group of professional geologists and engineers that have worked for major mining companies on major projects, right from this exploration, discovery of deposits, building mines, and operating mines. So it's quite unique in that respect of the skill set that's there. And we have a tight share structure with $1.6 billion, $1.7 million in cash that we are moving forward through. So we are quite a unique opportunity here in company. And I'll just point out these things again very Nevada-focused vanadium resource company with an exceptional gold target. That vanadium project is at a PEA level. Very motivated, highly skilled people in the organization that are dedicated and driving these projects forward, the vanadium resource and the gold opportunity. We're right in the best in Nevada, which is the greatest place to be looking for gold, and because of its jurisdiction and the infrastructure, but also we're in the best part of Nevada, right in the Carlin Gold Trend, which is like the highest concentration of gold in the world in this trend. We've got some exceptional people in our organization, just as in the application of this gold exploration, 2 geologists, Dave, myself, we've been involved with the discovery of 10 gold deposits in definitely over 14 million ounces in our career. So we know what we're doing, had good successes, and we're looking to do it again. The near-term opportunity here is a discovery of a high-grade Carlin-style gold deposit, and being directed by Dave. He's a well-known, proven mine finder in the camp. But our long-term goal, of course, is to be a vanadium producer, supplier to the steel and the battery sector. So that gives you a scope of what we're in landscape of the company. And introducing our guys here, guys and girls. I don't have all of our people here, but as I mentioned, professional geologists, engineers. We've got a construction engineer who's built 20 mines in North and South America. We've got 6 metallurgists that are top-notch people, and mining engineers who have been at general manager levels in major companies and major mines. And some other people, some business people, Tukey Angus and John Anderson are business people. We've got a well-rounded group of people and very, very deep qualifications. Just turning towards the application on the gold, I've just highlight again, to have a company that has 2 geos that have found 10 gold deposits is truly an exception for a company this size. But my focus is really to bring Dave Mathieson, to introduce Dave Mathieson to you because of his application and knowledge in the Carlin Gold Trend. He vigorously explored there for Newmont as regional manager, and as a founder of Gold Standard Ventures was a big success. And Dave has, with Newmont, was instrumental in probably discovering and involved in discovering of 30 or 40 million ounces of gold. But even in the vicinity of our property, about 5 million ounces of gold. So truly a privilege to have him, and having that skill set and success is a real benefit for us. And just before I get off the point of his experience with Gold Standard Ventures, that's only 5 kilometers away from our property. And Dave was instrumental in setting that company up, getting the land position, making gold deposit discoveries. That went up to a $1 billion market cap at one point from his work there. So we're talking about very, very a very good skill set and accomplishments. A little more detail about our share structure and price. Our market cap, I won't go into a lot of detail. It's something that you can come back to on this presentation at some point in time. But share structure of 53 million shares, market cap of about 20 million, enterprise value about 18 million. And the charts are showing since June, since we've moved towards talking to the market that we are now funded and going towards doing the gold testing, our share prices on the uptick. So we're at around the 38 to 40 cent range. This is Nevada and our flagship project, the Carlin Vanadium project. And again, a lot of information here, but I spoke of it being the largest, highest grade vanadium deposit. There's about 380 million pounds of vanadium there at a high grade. Most of it in the indicated category, 80% in the indicated category. Had a PEA that was completed in May of this year. Had done a number of drill campaigns to get us to that. There's a number of elements of the PEA that I could touch base on, but I don't want to get too sidetracked. I do want to present that it is a substantial asset and backing of our company, but I certainly want to get onto the gold thing. But vanadium is a very strategic metal for the U.S. It doesn't produce it, and from homeland security, the U.S. does want to get its own domestic source. The location of the project is very strategic. It's in northern Nevada between Reno and Salt Lake City, just 6 miles south of the I-80 highway. Tremendous infrastructure in this area. We're in the Carlin Gold Trend. We're 6 miles from a rail hub, major highway, power, skilled labor force from the mining sector, and easily trucking distance to the massive processing plants of Newmont Barrick, which is now Nevada Gold Mines. Just unparalleled opportunity here with the infrastructure. There's a little bit about the PEA. This was determined to be a 16-year mine life, about 1 million tons a year, and it showed a very attractive operating cost of about $5 a pound, which is important because that becomes a lower quartile cost curve, which is important to be for a competitive edge against producers. And the opportunity, as vanadium prices do go up, a significant opportunity for value. You see that at a vanadium price of $15, $15.40, there's about $1 billion of cash flow, after-tax cash flow. Just wanted to demonstrate again, this graph shows all of the vanadium producers around the world and how much it costs to produce a pound of V2O5 and where we project into that cost curve. So it shows that there's definitely, the project has potential competitive edge against a lot of other vanadium producers. I want to move away from our vanadium topic and move to the gold, because this is where we see in the next 6 months a tremendous catalyst for us. And we have just begun our drill program, but I want Dave to introduce the Carlin trend, because he knows so much about it, and our property and the ingredients that we have that he's excited about. So Dave?
Well, good morning, everyone, or afternoon, as the case may be, evening, perhaps. I am Dave Mathewson. I have approximately 50 years of experience total in mineral metal exploration and about 40 years of exploration experience in gold. And that basically all the gold exploration experience has been in Nevada, and in the area which is referred to as North Central Nevada in a general way. But I have been very instrumental in discoveries along what are the important gold trends in Nevada, and probably and primarily the Carlin trend, which is the premier at this time, at least for production-wise and discovery-wise, gold trend perhaps in the world. As Paul mentioned earlier, the Carlin trend, and I'd argue the entire north central Nevada area has the highest concentration of gold anywhere on the Earth's crust. The Carlin trend has known now approximately 200 million ounces, of which about 100 million ounces have been produced. There's tremendous infrastructure nearby. I actually managed for Newmont the Carlin exploration program for a couple of years, but prior to that, I spent a lot of time in the Rain District, which is on the flank of the Carlin Vanadium project, just off to a little bit to the east. And I'm very familiar with the rock packages, the systems, the model. I helped develop the model. I helped develop the approaches to exploration in Nevada and probably in particular on the Carlin Trend. We're using various geophysical methods, gravity, CSAMT, IP in some instances, magnetics, and so on. And along the way, I was very fortunate in being successful in a number of discoveries in the end, some of them very close to Carlin Vanadium. I think, are we going to the next one now?
Certainly.
Okay, here's a longitudinal section which I put together representing the Carlin Trend. And it's about 50 miles from end to end. That'd be from the right-hand side is the north area of the Carlin Trend, and going on toward the left is the southern portion of the Carlin Trend. And that represents the positions for most of the gold deposits on the Carlin Trend. And that was my work. I did that actually under contract of a junior exploration company after I left Newmont. That kind of gives you the idea of where the gold would be or should be in some instances. And in fact, it's predictable as to where it should be, because there are certain rock packages that are important and conducive to gold exploration, gold discovery, more importantly. And it is a series of, on a north, northwest, south, southeast linear basis, a series of domes, uplifts, that is, and these are intrusive centered domes. The intrusives, the ages of which are dominantly, and the important ages are the early tertiary, which may not mean much, but it's approximately 35 to 40 million year old intrusive settings. And this is the period of gold introduction into this portion of the Earth's crust. And again, I would describe it as having known approximately 200 million ounces at this point. But I've always believed, and I do believe, and without any shadow of doubt in my mind, that there's a lot more gold to be discovered. The business now is about drilling. And we, as Paul mentioned, we just started drilling yesterday on the Carlin Vanadium project. This is, there's two figures here, and which I put together. The one to your left shows the position of a lot of the deposits. This is generally the north part of the Pinion Range, or in the north part of the Pinion Range, and it's the southern portion of the Carlin Trend. And is there a pointer? Or no, there's no pointer.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know.
I don't know if it's going to be seen, but
all right, don't know if the pointer, but the Rain area in this northeast corner, and we're looking at the map on the left-hand side, is where I've spent a lot of time. And I started working there while with Newmont as an assignment. Go to Rain and find gold, Dave, and I was fairly successful. Approximately 6 million ounces came out of that program, and in fairly rapid succession. And then I was, after those discoveries, I was promoted to running the Great Basin program for Newmont. And then later on, I took over exploration of the Carlin Trend, the entire Carlin Trend. The map on the right, and there is a map of geophysics. That's gravity. I actually was very instrumental in developing gravity as a powerful tool in the utilization of finding and looking for gold deposits. There's a number of parts to this equation. One are where the right rocks are. That's important, and the depth of those correct rocks that you want to get into, because the rocks control where the gold is going to be in every instance, plus the structures. And you can see the linear black line elements. Those are the major structural trends. And again, this is all the Rain area, North Pinion Range area, which the Carlin gold target zone is in here. If you can see the cursor, it's has a red circle around it. And you look for a combination of things, the right rocks, alteration at the surface, and by the way, the gravity also is very good at identifying places of altered rock. And what I discovered was that the rocks became heavier when alteration became stronger. And by heavier, that gave more vivid color up into the red and purple zone. And you can see in the Carlin Vanadium area, there is that, and it's along this north-south structure. The primary important structures on the Carlin trend, well, the trend runs north-northwest, south-southeast. But the most important structures are west-northwest, the range structure, then there's the railroad structure, and then north-south is very, very important throughout the trend. So you look at these two primary structures, there's secondary structural issues, but that becomes more detail. I always go for the more important ones and the big ones, and what I call the suture structures or the feeder structures initially and primarily. Let's see the next one.
Yeah, this is more
okay.
The on the surface.
Yeah, thanks,
right.
Paul.
Yeah.
The model on the left-hand side, this really was devised and created from my work done at Rain, but also other places, so I can apply the model depending on the rocks in a number of localities. And it works. And again, it's a matter of the blue rocks or the carbonate rocks. They're very important to the process, not necessarily to where the gold is. The gold dominantly is along contacts of the overlying, in this case, be purple rocks, and the blue rocks below. The blue rocks may or may not contain a lot of gold, but it's collapsed breccias that are created in this particular geological environment that are so important to the deposition of gold and where to look for the gold. And there's two factors there. There's the collapsed breccias, and in this case, the yellow could be low grade, maybe subeconomic. And you zero in toward the big structures, that is the feeder structures, to look for the orange and red zones where the high grade is. And of course, the high grade becomes critically important the deeper you go. And this model fits and applies very well to the Carlin Vanadium project area. As I described and actually worked on this in this area long before, Carlin Vanadium came along, or first vanadium came along. The vanadium deposit was known, and the gold was maybe hinted at, and it was further kind of explored for in a very shallow portions of the property by, one company was Cameco, but I also looked the area over, never drilled it. I did recommend, however, I said, well, this is a place for perhaps significant discoveries, and it's likely not to be very shallow, although there are places where it could come fairly close to surface, but the geology suggests we have to get down into the rocks, probably at least 1,000 feet, but 1,000 on down. But this is in keeping with all the exploration and a lot of the deposits on the Carlin trend, many of which are now being mined. There's some very notable ones. In fact, most of the gold on the Carlin trend comes from underground mines at this point in time. The open pit, easy to get to gold, has not been mined out totally, but it's been heavily mined out. And now these underground mines are real. They can be very high grade. Deep Star, Meikle, Deep Post are examples, near 1 ounce average grade type deposits. Absolutely conducive to underground mining. The mining conditions are good, and there's a lot of head frames. Leeville is another, and Leeville was discovered while I was discovering gold on the Carlin trend in the Rain area. In fact, the first underground mine was a deposit I worked on at Rain, and it developed into a mine, and they mined some portions of the deposits that I found at Rain.
Dave, you may
Yes.
mention about some of the indicators, the surface indicators that we have,
the
the alterations that you're seeing there that excite you or
Yes,
point you in the
absolutely,
right direction
absolutely,
here.
Paul, and thank you for that too. There's interesting gold at the surface, but it's gold, as I call it, in the wrong rocks. It's always nice to see gold in the wrong rocks, but if you're in the wrong rocks, you're probably not going to find significant economic quantities and qualities of gold. So the idea is that's fine. The gold is present, and we know it's present, and as part of a hydrothermal system, and that's very important. There's a sizable amount. It's again low grade, sub-economic, but it is an absolutely great indicator of what is there. There is a gold system. It establishes the fact that there's a gold system, and there's quite an extensive area of gold mineralization and other what we call pathfinder metals: arsenic, mercury, antimony, thallium. These all factor in, plus the associate alteration minerals. It could be dolomite, silica. They all are there, and the reality is that no holes have ever been drilled down to the real target depths, and that's what we as First Vanadium have commenced doing starting yesterday.
Yesterday, yeah.
Yes,
First hole started yesterday.
Pretty excited.
Yeah.
I think again, we're looking at surface expressions right now, but these holes that we're drilling are holes that are well designed to give us a lot of information going to depth. And as I put it, the gold exploration, I tell everybody, is an iterative process. You can examine and easily examine the surface information just by walking the ground and collecting samples right off the surface. That's not necessarily the easy part, but it's the important part. But it gives you only a couple dimensional sets of data. The real data come in when you get that third dimension and knowledge and information from the third dimension. And these holes we're drilling are designed to go deep, but we don't know how deep we have to go. That's why we're drilling, to find these things out. And more than anything, we're looking for the changes that may develop, and especially if we can get into some of the best rocks. I know they should be there, we all know, but we don't know what kind of depths we'll be dealing with until we start finding those depths.
Great, Dave. Thanks.
Yes.
Maybe I'll just wrap up just to mention that the near-term plans and catalysts are in the next 6 months is going to be completely focused on our gold target here. With first campaign of drilling that we're into right now, followed with a second campaign, which we no doubtedly will be doing probably in the October-November range. And those holes will be vectoring holes to hit sweet spots. The vanadium asset is still a significant one. We will, when the time is right, start to reinvest in that because there are studies that we can provide advantage to lowering capex and opex for the vanadium project. But that's something that we will do when in the appropriate time. Right now, it's all about gold, and that's the catalyst. In the next 6 months, we think we're going to have a really exciting ride here. So, Andrew, I'll pass it back to you there and to the audience for any questions. We'd be very happy to answer.
All right. Hey, thanks very much, gentlemen. That was a great update. Look, I've got a couple of questions on, Paul, just on the vanadium market. I know you touched a bit on it, but can you give us your feeling on the vanadium market and where you see the most opportunity, and when you think that market's going to change and be more constructive?
Right. Yeah, I think that we obviously, a lot of people know that vanadium prices went up very, very high in 2018 or 2018. And that was a great ride that we had. Went from 10 cents to $2. Vanadium has come back down on macro economies, the trade wars between China and the US, a number of factors there. It has kind of bottomed and now starting to climb back out. And I do believe that it's because vanadium is principally consumed in steel strengthening, it's basically for infrastructural projects. And if we're not investing in infrastructural projects because the world's uncertain, that'll be just sort of sitting. There won't have a progressive or big demand on vanadium prices. What I see as the catalyst here is the vanadium battery, which has its old technology, 40-year-old NASA technology that's being commercialized now and has been for the last 3 years. It's a superior battery to the lithium battery in these solar large energy storage projects, which in the next decade is going to be a huge boom towards green energy applications, solar, wind, marine vessel, energy storage, grid power, and all that. Vanadium battery will have a significant component in that evolution, and that's where I see in the next between year and 5 years, I think we're going to see a foothold of the vanadium battery, and that'll drive it from the 5% use of vanadium to 30% plus use of or consumption of the worldwide vanadium. That's where I think is going to be the real growth opportunity.
Sorry about that. I was on mute. Look, you must see the deposit lying in the continental United States as having strategic value as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, it's the U.S. doesn't produce it, and it needs a domestic source. It's considered a critical metal for homeland security. So there is geopolitical advantages to it, and where it is, it's a great project.
Dave, on the gold side, you've got a breadth of knowledge and in discoveries, with Newmont over the last, 30, 40 years. At this stage, this is early stage stuff. This is a good conceptual target. It's got good fundamentals from early stage, geophysical response as well as surface as well as geochemistry. If you were to hazard a guess, just based on what you're seeing in the upper plate rocks and the alteration in the vanadium deposit, what do you think that target to depth is likely to be, or that range of target to depth?
The depth factors are one of the most difficult to determine or guess at, I would say. A lot can happen structurally on the way to the right rocks. And I've had surprises, pleasant surprises when I have not had to drill as deep as I originally contemplated or thought I had to drill, because of particularly low angle flat line structures, which can change the thicknesses of the stratigraphy, the stratigraphic packages, very dramatically and abruptly. And what I have found is around many of these major structural target zones, that in fact has happened. The best example is along the Rain Fault, which is about a 10-mile long fault. And it's got some very interesting and they were important structural complications that actually removed some of the stratigraphy and changed it by bringing in other rock packages from on the flanks of that. So we don't know. Now, I suspect there are going to be some of these structural complications because we are on a major structural suture. And my experience has been everywhere you're in one of these major structural suture, and that can translate to feeder zones, you do encounter these low angle structural complications. I cannot really at this point guess. I'm hoping that these are present, and I expect they're going to be, and it will be beneficial to the depths, in my opinion. And even irrespective of that, the rocks, the right rocks will be there. It's a matter of how deep we have to go. We just don't know that at this point in time, but we will be finding that out here relatively soon. And just because we drill one hole and it's at some depth, it doesn't mean that the other hole. These two holes are designed specifically to look at these two important areas in as much detail for those spots on the ground as possible and down into the depths of the rocks.
You'd suggested, Dave, somewhere, and again, hazard a guess because we don't really know, somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 feet is.
I think that's a realistic estimation.
Yeah. That's the best we can do.
Yes,
we get
at this point, yes.
Yeah.
But I guess the advantage here is you've got that depth of experience that knows the target that you're focused on and understands what you're going to be seeing as those holes are drilled.
Well, the one thing I have learned very well, because I've studied this and I've had some success along the way, is that I am pretty good at reading the rocks and the structures and drill hole information. That's the third dimension. Right now, we don't have that third dimension. That's going to be factor in so importantly to the future. That's what we're doing. But beyond that, I mean, we could bang right into something, and that would be a very pleasant surprise. Again, I mentioned earlier, generally, exploration for gold is an iterative process. You drill one hole and get information, then you design the next hole according to what information that hole provided, so on and so forth. This can take a series of holes. And a good example of that, I suppose, at Gold Standard, it was hole number 8 that was drilled in the sequence to discover the North Bullion deposit. I had maybe a little bit more fortunate rain at the test discovery at Rain. I got very positive information in the first hole. And then I directed, I did a geology hole following that, which was not for the target assessment, but the hole following that, which would really be the second serious hole drilled in that sequence, was the real discovery hole for the test deposit in Rain. And once the test deposit was found, Saddle was found, and Northwest Rain was found, and that really opened up that corridor northwest of the historic Rain open pit very dramatically.
Those are pretty good hit ratios, given a couple of companies that I'm aware of have taken tens, if not hundreds of holes before.
It can, and often, yes. I think that speaks to the importance of having, and I'll say it, an experienced geologist on board and assisting in every way possible the process. Yeah. You're right. A lot of companies have, in some of these areas, have come and gone, and I think that a lot of that reflects lack of experience and knowing just what the model is like and how you work the model. The subtleties matter, as I put it to everybody, and sometimes the subtleties are extremely important. Depending, again, with the rock package and the location, it's a combination of a lot of things. Geochemistry, of course. Once you get the holes, you start getting assays from those depths. That's very important. And geochem associated with gold is very important. Gold itself, of course, is the number one metal of interest in the case of gold, but pathfinders factor in very heavily and importantly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yes. Hey, look, well, if you have success in these two holes, I mean, what kind of style of mineralization are you looking? I mean, the Carlin Trend has numerous styles of mineralization that you could potentially intersect. Are we talking oxide zones, or are we talking refractory sulfides? What's your expectation when with what you know right now?
Andrew, that's an excellent question, and it's an interesting question that kind of opens up a door. The two primary varieties are there's unoxidized ores, which of course we have nearby infrastructure to handle, roasters and autoclaves within easy trucking distance. So that really we're in a great situation with respect to the discovery of that kind of material. The other kind is then what everybody likes, because the gold just with a little chemical help just comes right out of the rocks, and that's oxide ores. One of the interesting things, and in the Rain District, it's very well represented this way, there's both, and it's not a depth issue. It is a matter of the system issue. I'm a very strong and firm believer of hypogene oxidation. And what this means is during the latter part of the gold introduction, after the gold has been introduced, you have circulating groundwaters that are coming into the same area bearing oxygenated groundwaters, and the oxidation occurs primarily at that time. As opposed to waiting for weathering processes and long periods of time, this can happen very quickly in the scheme of things. What I have discovered is oxidation can be very deep, thousands of feet deep. And it just depends on how that system operated. So I would say either refractory, which is not a bad thing given our location, or oxide is, well, those are the two options that are there. As far as the type and style and deposition of the metals, we're looking in an environment of which I refer to as a collapse brush environment. And that's because the presence of carbonates were conducive and inducive to the development of breccias, which is the primary host for gold mineralization throughout Nevada, particularly on the Carlin Trend. I would say 80 to 90% of all the gold on the Carlin Trend relates to these collapsed breccia environments. And also the higher grade tends to like the collapsed breccias because there's much more open space available for the gold to be introduced into from an original depositional standpoint.
Have you ever seen an incident, I guess geology dependent, but is there also the potential that beneath the vanadium deposit, you could potentially have a broader disseminated style of gold mineralization that hey, might be amenable to open pit if the depths aren't extreme? Or is that kind of target unlikely?
You brought up an interesting question. I did a lot of thinking about, well, on the one hand, there's the presence of a lot of vanadium. On the other hand, we think that it's a very good gold target, right? So what is the relationship between the two? I have done a lot of thinking about it. I have some background experience. I have some experience in other places and other parts of Nevada. Vanadium shows up in various places in rock units. The vanadium, I believe the answer is the vanadium came in much earlier into this area. And that would be approximately 200 million years ago. Utilizing the same suture or feeder zone as the gold could be using, and hopefully has used, in a later event, which would be early tertiary. The gold is well known, and we have the intrusives. We don't, from the vanadium, Carlin vanadium area, we don't have any intrusive dates but we do nearby at Rain and Railroad. And so we have surrounding areas where we know the timing of the gold, and that was approximately in the range of 37 to 38 million years ago. So it's interesting to have two metal systems probably utilizing the same feeder structural zones, but one was much earlier, like hundreds of millions, a couple 100 million years earlier. But that reflects the fact that this suture, the vanadium, in my opinion, reflects the fact that this suture, the deep penetrating structures are there. and now we're looking for the gold that came at a later time, more recent time.
So we're anticipating the gold target, gold, hopefully a deposit, will be underneath the vanadium resource that's associated with that structure. We just don't know the depth. And you're mentioning about possibly some low-grade disseminated. It really will depend on the rock type that is below the vanadium resource, if that was an opportunity. But I don't know, Dave, we don't really.
Well, the model would suggest the likelihood of collapse breccias getting into the right rocks, and that because we're on far enough on the shelf, there will be carbonate rocks. We just don't know where they are. But these collapse breccias tend to propagate upward, even well above the carbonate rocks into the clastic rocks, and that's part of the model. And we don't know how shallow those collapse breccias may develop, but that's what we're drilling to find out, and we'll be finding out.
Hey, look, just one more question on the gold side, and then I'd like to flip, and I've got a couple of questions just on the vanadium side. So how many meters are you planning on drilling on this first phase of drilling for the gold target?
5,000 feet.
5,000 feet. Okay, there we go.
Right now we're anticipating, again, because Dave has indicated that we don't really know the depth. We're planning on two 2,500 foot holes, and we could hit it a lot earlier, but that's where we're going to start with, and then anticipating another program of 4 or 5 holes in October and November, about the same amount, or it will be dependent on the depth of the target then.
So through the remainder of this year, we're looking at somewhere around, I don't know, 3,500 meters of drilling. Then
sounds about right. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Potentially more depending on depth of target.
Correct.
Hey, look,
yeah.
Paul, just on the vanadium side, I mean, let's talk a bit about processing. So, in the PEA, presumably you've got on-site processing for vanadium, and how complex does that processing flow sheet look like?
Well, it's innovative, but all the components of the processing flow sheet that we have are all conventional steps, but it's never been done with a vanadium deposit. So it is very innovative. We've got a patent application that's in, because we think that it's very intriguing, and it was designed by some brilliant metallurgists, including Dave Dreisinger of UBC. He's chair of hydrometallurgy, and the other metallurgists that we've had, 6 metallurgists involved in our group. So we use attrition scrubbing, autoclaving, pressure oxidation, and then ion exchange and SX. So there's a number of steps, but it seems to work, and we get about 80% recovery of the vanadium through the process.
All right. Hey, look, that's excellent. That's an excellent overview of first vanadium and what's going to take place over the next 6 to 8 months by the time you get results out early in the new year on the second round of drilling.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much to both of you for taking the time to present and giving everybody here online an update on what First Vanadium is doing. And look, I encourage everybody online to go to the Red Cloud website, and you'll be able to see the number of webinars that we've got on our platform over the next couple of weeks. So thank you very much, everybody, for attending, and Paul and Dave, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All the best. Take care.
Yes.